We'll give it a minute and we'll give everyone some time to roll in here before we get going. All right, looks like we're slowly getting some attendees rolling in, so. All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Wyoming Community Navigator Program webinar. I'm Mandy Bailey. I am the Advising and Education Director for the Wyoming Community Navigator Program, and I'm going to be your facilitator today, kind of running things on the back end. If we have any technical issues, I'll do my very best to resolve those. If you have questions or anything like that, please let us know. Feel free to unmute yourself. If you want to show your camera, feel free to do that as well. So just to give everyone a little bit of information about the Wyoming Community Navigator Program, it is funded through the U.S. Small Business Administration and utilizes the Wyoming Entrepreneurial Support Network to try and reduce barriers that all small businesses often face, including those owned by groups such as veterans, women, and those from rural communities and communities of color. So the way we do that is we use a hub and spoke model to pursue our goals. Through our collective efforts, the hub and spokes provide training, access to capital, and access to other resources to help small business owners build resiliency and ultimately be the driving force behind Wyoming's economic recovery. Today, we are going to hear from Bridget Manley and Daniel Patterson. I'll give you a brief intro. Bridget is an e-learning specialist with a passion for helping learners become effective agents in their careers and in their communities. She co-founded Ascendant Design and Training with her husband, Daniel Patterson, in July of 2020. And before that, she was a curriculum manager for a Denver-based startup company where they developed compliance and manufacturing training for the state legal cannabis industry. And then Daniel is a software systems developer with over 30 years of multidisciplinary experience in software, electronic, and mechanical design. He's been very involved with several different industries, including logistics, gaming, music, and heavy equipment, just to name a few. So I will turn it over to both Bridget and Daniel.
Okay, well, thank you, Mandy, and thank you for everybody who's joining us here today. Hopefully you should be able to see my screen. And today we're going to give you just a brief introduction to project management software and how it can help you in your small business, regardless of what kind of business you're running or what kind of product or service you're offering. Okay, so just a little bit more about us. I am Bridget Manley. I'm kind of head of the services side of our company. So my main job is to work with clients to help them develop custom learning solutions, mainly for their workforce. Daniel is my business partner and also my husband. And he is our chief technical officer. And he's kind of the head of the product side of the house. So he's in charge of, software products and, all things software and programming. So together we've been running our business for about 2.5 years. And in that time, we've had a lot of opportunity to explore different ways of managing projects, managing tasks, both for clients and internally. And from that experience, we drew heavily for this webinar today. So we could share a little bit about what we've learned and also give you some other insights that we've developed through some of our own research as well. So let's just briefly describe what we'll do together today. We're going to start today by exploring how project management can help your business. And then from there, we'll go to identify 3 types of program or project management software. We kind of put them into 3 groups based on where you can access them and how they work. And then we'll also give a recommendation for what kind of project management software would be best for your business based on, again, kind of our personal experience and what we've seen other people using as well. From there, we'll go into kind of taking a deeper dive into the common features that you'll find in project management software and give you some strategies for successfully choosing and implementing the platform of your choice. So throughout today's webinar, we encourage you to interact with us, interact with other attendees. Feel free to use the chat to drop in questions, add comments. If you know of other project management tools that you use that are not in this list of what we're covering today, feel free to drop that in the chat too. One of the nice things about these kinds of webinars is it becomes kind of like a group learning experience where we're all sharing what we've learned and what works for us. So feel free to do that. We'll take pauses throughout the webinar and also at the end to answer questions. And during those times, you are more than welcome to unmute your microphone and ask a question verbally if you'd like. We just ask that when you're not speaking to go ahead and mute your microphone so we don't have any background noise. So with that, we're going to start with a question. We'd like you to introduce yourself if you feel comfortable. Drop into the chat what type of business you currently own or hope to own if you haven't launched one yet. And then please just tell us a little bit about what you hope to learn today. What brought you to this webinar? Hopefully we can go through those and start addressing some of those specific concerns or specific questions you might have. So feel free to drop that in the chat. Again, what kind of business you own or hope to own, and what do you hope to learn today? Instead of sitting here and looking at you for a minute while you write, I'm going to go ahead and while you're thinking, responding, going on into the next slide, we'll just talk a little bit about project management, and then we'll come back to this question. Okay, so what is project management? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like, right? It's basically a method for planning, organizing, and guiding projects effectively. Now, when we're talking about a small business, projects can mean a lot of things. It can mean projects that you're doing for clients or customers. It could be creating actual products that you sell, developing services for them, or it can be internal facing projects, things that you do to develop your business. All of these can fall under that project management umbrella. One of the biggest things about project management is it helps you keep your projects on time and within budget, while also making sure that you have high quality deliverables at each stage of the process. Now, deliverable, what does that mean? It kind of varies on what you're doing. Basically, a deliverable is a tangible outcome of a project that contributes to its overall success. So if you're doing a service for a client, for instance, for us, for instance, like when we're developing, say like an e-learning program, deliverables for our clients might be like a storyboard or like an overview of what each slide in that training will look like. A deliverable could also be like the finished package, the programmatic tool that they will upload into their website so learners can use it. But if you're more of a product business, then your deliverables might look like prototypes for a product. You might have alpha and beta versions of projects, or like first and second versions. You might also have packaging mockups. All these things would be considered deliverables within the context of project management. So without getting too technical or nerdy on you, we'll just go over briefly some common project management methodologies that you might have heard of, or that you may or may not have heard of before. These include the waterfall method, which is basically a linear sequential approach to project management, right? You finish one stage, you go to the next, you go to the next, and you can't go to the next stage until the previous stage is done. This is often done in processes or in industries that rely on more linear processes like manufacturing or construction. An alternative to that is agile. And agile is a more cyclical, iterative approach in which projects are completed, or parts of projects are completed in short iterations, or sometimes they're called sprints. And the goal here is to develop projects quickly and to improve on them with each cycle. So instead of being one long waterfall, which usually takes longer to do, sprints move quicker and you have many of them, and then the project or the service improves gradually with each sprint. Another one that you may have heard of is called Kanban. And this is a subset of Agile that uses what's called a Kanban board to visualize the workflow. And a Kanban board is basically different columns, and they're usually organized by status, like things that have not been done, things that are in progress, and things that are done. And you move a task from one to the other. And Kanban specifically focuses on limiting work in progress to improve the flow of work and reduce waste. So now that we've kind of got a basic overview of what project management is and maybe some methodologies that you may have heard of, let's go back to the chat and just see who's here today and kind of share some of those experiences. Okay. Okay, so Jennifer says manufacturing of sporting goods, trying to find better ways to make our processes flow better. Okay, yeah, hopefully this today should give you some ideas for some tools you can use to do that. Let's see, Devin, I hope to gain ideas on how to organize multi-step projects such as quarterly fuel tax reports. Yeah, definitely, yeah. That's one of the things that we do as well in our business, is trying to manage projects that take multiple steps, and hopefully the tools we talk about today should help with that. Okay, Carrie says she's looking for scheduling, events, and board management. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll get into a lot of that. See, Margaret, we are not only looking for a new project management software, but also interested in an integrated performance management system with that. Interesting. Yeah, let me think about that, because I mean, there could be some interesting solutions there. Okay, provide directs. Okay, let's see, Jamie, I believe, or Jamie or Jaime. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Okay, direct services to people and manage all the admin functions, looking for ways to manage tasks and projects. Yep, that sounds like a lot, kind of like what we do as well. We have Walt. Hi, Walt. Okay, cool. In Jackson, Wyoming. Okay, I hope to own a business that is wellness related. I'm here to learn more about project management. Yeah, definitely. It's good to start early rather than get into your business and realize I need a system. So yeah. Okay, cool. So there's a lot of comments here. I won't go through them all, but thank you again for hopping in the chat, asking questions. If there are questions that come up throughout, Daniel and I will be monitoring this so we can answer those as we go. But again, thank you for engaging with us today. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump to the next part of today's session. We're just going to kind of go over the benefits of project management software briefly, and I think this will touch on some of the comments we've had so far. One of the biggest benefits is, frankly, the ability to track critical tasks, and also with that, being able to identify dependencies, identifying potential bottlenecks, being able to assign due dates, all those kinds of things make projects much easier to manage. They also help you manage resources. So you can know how much time, in some cases money, or hours and people that you're devoting to any particular project, and being able to shift those as necessary. Project management software also helps you identify potential risks. And if you've done any kind of project management before, you've probably had the experience where things can kind of go off the rails, sometimes rather quickly. But being able to step back and look at your project management software, you can identify early signs of trouble where, either a project is taking longer than you expect it to, or it might be creeping outside of scope, creeping outside of budget. All those things you can track early with project management software, and that helps you mitigate your risks. It also helps you assure quality, just because, if you have a good system and you can check quality each stage of those deliverables, you're making sure that throughout the process you have quality overall. And probably one of the lesser known advantages of project management software, but I think that is really relevant, especially now that a lot of people are working either remotely or hybrid, is the fact that it allows you to facilitate better communication and actually build your company culture, even if you're not working directly face-to-face with your staff. And we'll talk more about that today, but I really kind of want to highlight that to say, if nothing else, consider using a project management tool if you have contractors or employees who you're working with who might be off-site. It's a great way to stay in touch and a great way to make sure that they feel engaged and part of the team. So now that we know some of the advantages of this software, we're just going to briefly do a survey of the common features that you'll find, and we'll go into these features in more depth later, but just to kind of give you a sneak peek. These features often include, of course, task scheduling, budget tracking, chat and messaging, reporting, file sharing, and also being able to visualize work in multiple formats. And this is really helpful because it gives you multiple ways of seeing projects either individually, or if you have multiple projects at one time, you can compare them all at once and see your entire workload in one glance, which is really helpful, again, if you have multiple projects or multiple clients. Okay. So now we're going to kind of go into those three categories we talked about, the three categories of project management software. And these are categories that we created just to kind of make this a little bit more manageable, kind of break them into separate buckets. So these categories are based on kind of how and where the project management tool works. The first category is desktop-based, and these are tools that have to be installed directly on a computer's hard drive. These often come with a very comprehensive range of features and functionalities, and they can and often are normally used offline, so you don't need to have an internet connection to make them work. Probably one of the more popular or well-known types of desktop-based project management software is Microsoft Project. In the next category, kind of on the other end of the spectrum, we have mobile-only project management. And this is often designed for specifically for use on mobile devices, right? Like tablets, cell phones, smartphones, those sorts of things. They often come with a kind of limited suite of tools, including task management, calendar integration, and some team communication tools. But they're often a much smaller set of tools and more simple tools than what you'd find in a desktop-based tool. So some examples of these would be Easy Project and Todoist. The final category kind of falls in the middle, and this is web-based, or you might hear it called cloud-based software. And these tools are accessible through your web browser, and they do require an internet connection to work. They offer similar features as a desktop-based software, including task lists, project timelines, document sharing, communication. These tools are often more affordable and sometimes easier to use than desktop-based software. Some examples of web-based tools include Monday.com, Trello, ClickUp, and Asana. Okay, so let's talk about how these compare. If you're using desktop software, you have to keep in mind that it can only be used on the device that it's installed on. So if you have a big team, or if you have a hybrid or remote team that's spread out across the country, this could get a little sticky because you have to make sure that everybody has their own copy, that it's installed on their device. And it also may require updates from maintenance or from an IT department, right? And if you're a small business, like most of us are, you might be the IT department. So you might have to step in to troubleshoot some of the issues it has once in a while. For mobile-only tools, again, like we mentioned, these often have limited functionality. They're great if you have small projects, or if you're a small business and you're just getting started out, or you do most of your work on the go. But if you're a little bit bigger, you're a bit more established, mobile-only might not do it for you. And for that reason, they're not ideal usually for large-scale project management, managing big projects or managing multiple projects simultaneously. So web-based tools, keep in mind, those do require a stable internet connection. So if you're in a place where you know that the internet is spotty or goes out, this could be a complication perhaps. And in some cases, web-based software might be less robust than desktop-based versions, but in our experience, we found them to be pretty comparable. Now, if you're managing, huge projects, then desktop-based software might be a better bet. But if you're just, kind of run-of-the-mill small business, you've got a few projects, few clients going, cloud-based software might be your best bet. So for that reason, we personally would recommend looking into cloud-based tools first if you are looking to change or adopt a new project management system. Now, with that being said, we always encourage you to do your own research, right? I mean, because your mileage may vary from ours. You might have completely different needs, and you might need a different type of software. But just as a general rule, we'd encourage you to take a look at some of the web-based versions first. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper into that. Like, why do we recommend web-based software? The first one is simply it affords a larger degree of accessibility and flexibility, simply because you can access that tool from anywhere that you have an internet connection. So that could be at your laptop at home, it could be on your mobile phone, if the tool offers a mobile app, which most of them do. So it's really great for that reason, for being on the go, and also for working with, again, remote or hybrid collaborators. Along with that, it allows for real-time collaboration. So you can be chatting, sending messages, sending updates in real time. And this kind of helps to address that culture building topic that we talked about just a second ago, where you can actually kind of create that feel of like, people feel like they're involved in a larger team. They feel synced in, they can get immediate response, they can get quick feedback. All these things really help not only move projects forward, but also improve team cohesion. With that, you can also, and a lot of times, get much better productivity, simply because you're providing yourself and your team, if you have one, with a central location for storing and managing all project information. So this can include tasks, this can include documents with important information, this can include budgets, all that stuff you can have in one central location where it's easy to access and organize. Also, too, the resource management aspect. It allows your teams to manage staff, equipment, and budget more effectively. And it provides a clear view into how much or how many resources you're using for any particular project, which gives you more data that you can use to make informed decisions about your projects. Transparency is a big one, too. If you have stakeholders, say like end clients or maybe another, collaborator that you're working with, it gives them a window into what's going on in the project. You can also, in a lot of cases, control how much they see as well. So they only see what's relevant to their role in the project, but it provides a central place for them to stay up to date with the project as well. And we'll talk about this more in just a minute, but you can create dashboards that provide, more of an executive overview of a project. I mean, whether that's for you, as the project manager, or whether it's for a stakeholder. It gives them an easy, project at a glance view where they can stay up to date at all times. Scalability, that's a big one with the cloud-based services, simply because a lot of them offer a free or trial version first, and then multiple tiers of service depending on how much you're willing to pay. And this is nice because it basically allows your project management system to grow as your company grows. You're not paying for, for services or for features that you're not using right now. Okay, so next we'll take a deep dive into the features included into most web-based project management software and explore how they can support you in your business. But I just wanted to pause for a second here and see if we have anything new in the chat. Okay. Let's see, I think there was a question here, perhaps.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that Walt said, would love to hear about a few of your favorite open source PM management software, project management software options. And I just answered to him that I've had good luck with Gantt Project in the past. It has a pretty limited scope of purpose, but for what it does, it's very reliable and almost built like an army tank. So
cool, excellent. Yeah, that's always nice to have the open source. I mean, sometimes it'll be more limited, but the good ones will be really robust. So awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, I see Kurt says, I understand this might be addressed later, but wanted to have it noted. Are there any PM software options robust enough for multiple projects or entities that ebb and flow commitment and demand-wise throughout the year? Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. I would say from what we've experienced, the web-based platforms that we're going to be exploring in just a minute, all of those are actually, really flexible. So they actually can, be robust enough to have multiple projects that either ramp up or ramp down throughout the year. And you can adjust your views. So, so you can prioritize projects that are currently, really ramping up, that are taking a lot of your bandwidth. And you can also later adjust those down to where if they're not nearly as much work, or if you're phasing that project out or finishing it up, you can change that as well. So hopefully, as we go through some of the features, this should hopefully clarify that for you, but just to provide a shorter answer, yes, it can. So thank you for that. Okay, cool. So get my slide to go to the next part. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the key features. The first one that you're probably all familiar with is just the concept of task management. That's kind of what project management is all about to a large degree. A lot of cloud-based systems will allow you to create, assign, and track tasks across a variety of different metrics. You can delegate tasks to other people. You can assign watchers or people who aren't necessarily responsible for that task, but who have to stay informed on that task's progress. So that could be project managers, department managers, stakeholders, you, if that's all of the things you do. You can definitely stay up to date with all those different tasks if you do the watcher aspect to it. You can also, of course, assign priorities, due dates, and start dates. And this is nice, especially if you're familiar with the Gantt style of project management, where you have, it's, basically like the waterfall view, where you have multiple tasks and you can see visually how long they take and what dependencies they have. Being able to set both start dates and due dates will help you plan your resources and your time, so you can see how much a task will logically take to complete. You can create dependencies within tasks, so you can note what has to be done before another task is done. And that's really nice for identifying bottlenecks. So if there's something that's constantly causing a sticking point and holding up the project, you can identify that and hopefully, look at different ways of managing that as well. One of the things I personally really like is the ability to break large tasks into manageable subtasks. So this is where you have basically a parent task that, usually can take several days to several weeks, several months maybe to complete. And then you can create subtasks underneath that kind of break it down more granularly and say, these are the things that I can get done in a day, in half a day. And then you can break it down, one, to make it more manageable, so it seems less like a heavy lift, but also to make sure that you're thinking through that big task thoroughly and you can budget the time and resources needed to complete it at each stage. A lot of tools will also have what are called automations. I know Trello and ClickUp both offer this, where you can automatically make it do certain things at certain times. So for instance, if you're the only person working on a particular project, you can create an automation where all tasks and subtasks in that project are assigned to you. You can also make it to where if a certain task is created with a certain assignee, it'll send an email. It'll automatically assign a certain watcher to all different types of tasks. And this is nice because it saves you a lot of time and that tedious stuff that you sometimes do in task management. And it also makes sure that that stuff doesn't get overlooked, right? Because I'm sure that for people, for those of us who have managed projects, the devil is definitely in the details, and the fewer details you have to manage and potentially forget, just the smoother that project will go. Okay, the last thing with task management is that it also allows you to create timelines, milestones, and like we mentioned, dependencies. And if you're not familiar, basically a milestone is any major benchmark in the project, and it's usually assigned or associated with a handoff of a key deliverable. Often a milestone will require a client or manager to sign off to accept that project. So that's kind of part of part of your quality assurance task. You have to make sure that that particular deliverable is ready to go before you can reach that milestone. And milestones can also be tied to payment if you're doing any kind of service. So if you have a big project, instead of waiting for the lump sum at the end, you can assign a monetary amount for the receipt of each milestone in the project. And that helps you both, break it down a little bit, kind of have that cash flow coming throughout, but it also gives the client some reassurance knowing that they're going to be paying once that they have accepted each chunk in that project. Okay. So the next major feature is resource management. And by resources, this can be anything from money, time, people, anything that you're investing into the project. So of course, with tasks, you can assign people. That's a pretty common feature in pretty much all project management. But depending on the type of platform you have, you can also assign equipment, time, and other resources, including budgetary resources. Adding time estimates to tasks is really helpful, especially if you're working on a project that has time constraints. For instance, if you have basically bid on a project and you've estimated the number of hours that go into that, adding time estimates will help you break down all the tasks by hours to make sure that you're not over budgeting your hours. And then as you go through the project, you can compare your actual time to the budgeted time and see if there's any places where you need to either make adjustments or go back and say, hey, I think this project is actually going to take longer than I first estimated. So again, yeah, I mean, kind of what I just mentioned, the ability to track time on tasks is important as well. Another nice feature is that this particular aspect of resource management allows you to manage your team members' availability and workload. So currently we're using ClickUp, and one of the features in that is that it gives you a workload view. So you can set your weekly workload, either in terms of the number of hours that you're spending or the number of tasks. And then there's a view where you can open it up and you can see for each day in the week where you're at, right? It'll show you basically like your full availability, and it'll show you if you're within that, if you're over that. And that's really good, especially if you're managing multiple people. If you notice that one person is like way overbooked and another person has just a little bit to do, it's an easy way that you can, shift some tasks and make that project more manageable. And again, hopefully avoid problems down the road with one person struggling to deliver just because they have too much on their plate. Budget estimates to tasks. This is really helpful if you do have, budgetary, milestones or amounts linked to each task. That's helpful as well. And then you can add projected and actual costs to projects. Just like you want to manage and compare the time you're investing, you want to be able to do that too with the money to see if, see if your financial amount that you're investing is matching up to what you thought it would be. Okay. Another feature that's really helpful is the collaboration feature. Most web-based platforms will have chat built right into the task. So basically allowing team members to, talk about that specific task and put it in the context of that work, right? Rather than just having like a long flow of like chat messages that's referring to this task or, hey, how about this task over here? The chat is actually embedded right in the task. So it's easy to track and easy to kind of keep that contextual knowledge in place. Reactions, if you're not familiar, that's kind of just like the emojis, thumbs up, smile. There are some other ones. I think green check mark is one that's used a lot in Slack to say that this is done. A pair of eyes looking means I'm looking into it. If you want to spend the time to actually kind of go through and create kind of a company guide of like how you use these, that can be helpful too, because then people can respond, they can acknowledge, and they can give you information without taking a lot of time to type a message. And that can be really helpful as well. Of course, comments within tasks, we just mentioned, that's a great way to, keep people up to date on what's happening in the project. And a lot of web-based systems will also allow you to attach tasks or attach files directly to a task. And this is helpful, say if you're working on a project and you need a collaborator to give you a deliverable, instead of sending it via email where it might get lost, they can attach it straight to the task. And as you have multiple versions of that document, they can all be attached to that one task. So you have a record of all of the versions of that deliverable in one place. This depends on the type of platform you have, but I know ClickUp offers this, where it'll have video clips and screen sharing. So you can actually attach a short screen share video to a task or a short video of yourself talking into the camera to a task as well. Screen sharing can be really helpful if you have a problem, or if one of your, say if one of your collaborators is having a problem and they need to help, basically fixing a problem on their computer, or if it's just easier to show what they're seeing on a project rather than trying to explain it to you. That can be a really good way to get communication very fast, very quick, and very effective. Okay. So next, let's talk about reporting and analytics. And this can be really helpful for kind of like that 10,000-foot overview of a project. So far, the features we've talked about are kind of like, being in the trenches, managing day to day, but sometimes you have to take a step back and saying, okay, how are we doing really compared to, where we thought we would be? And these reporting and analytics tools will help you do that. So like I mentioned before, a lot of these tools will include dashboards. And a dashboard is basically a view of different charts or numbers. It's basically a list of the most critical information about that project. So for instance, one of the things you can include in a dashboard would be like a pie chart showing the status of all tasks in a project by status. So you can see the percentage of those that have been completed, the percentage that are maybe waiting on dependencies. That's one view you can have. You can also include a view of, say like all the tasks that are due this week, which is really helpful. And these can be great for you as the project manager to have kind of like a regular way to just briefly check in on the project, see if you're missing anything, see what needs to get done. Excuse me. But if you also have a collaborator, or if you're reporting to somebody else, creating a dashboard for them will help them stay informed as well. And along with this, you can also create custom project views. I know Trello offers this on a limited scale where you can change the project into a calendar view. You can change it into a board view as well. So you can toggle between the two and see your work in different ways. And this is really helpful just so you have multiple ways of envisioning your work, right? One of the biggest things about project management is it gives you different ways to see your work, which helps you gain a lot of clarity. So one of the things that I like to do with our project management system is occasionally check my tasks by the calendar view. And I'll bring up all the tasks I have, and I'll just show it in a calendar. And that way I can see the days that I know my bandwidth is going to be limited. And I can also see the days where I have a little bit more flexibility. And that's great for planning. If I notice I have a ton of stuff on one day, I'm like, okay, I might need to shift some of these things because that's not feasible. But just something like that. I mean, it takes 5 minutes, but it also really helps you make sure that you're on track with your projects. And finally, again, depending on the type of software you have, it might allow you to create customizable reports that allow you to dive deeper into a project. So you can get into the really nitty gritty and make those comparisons and really get a feel for how your project is going. A lot of web-based tools also include mobile access and integration, meaning you can access the tool from an app on your phone or your tablet, which is helpful. This allows you to manage the projects on the go. And a lot of times these will integrate with other tools, including your calendar and email. So you're not toggling between all these apps to try to stay up to date with what's going on in your project. Okay, so before we go into success strategies, I just wanted to pause quickly and see if there are any questions. Okay, cool. So now we'll go into some strategies you can use to first select the right project management software for you, and then secondly, how to actually roll it out to your company and your team. So as we say with any kind of software tool, always start by prioritizing data security. You want to make sure that you choose a tool that is going to protect your data and not inadvertently leak it to somebody else. One of the ways that you can do this is to look for what's called an SOC3 report. If a cloud service has a current SOC3 report, it means that they have successfully passed an internal audit on several best practice areas, including data privacy. So that's one way that you can know that that tool is going to, take good care of your data. You also want to determine what features you need today, right now. It's easy to kind of look and imagine all the things you could do, but the best practice is to look and see what you need right now and choose a system based on that. Now, again, like if you're expecting to grow, it's a good idea to get a system that has multiple levels of service so you can scale up if you need to. But when you're choosing a project or when you're choosing a payment plan, always choose the one that fits your needs today. And also make sure that make sure whatever tool that you are looking at will integrate with your existing software and your existing processes. And we'll talk about this in just a minute, but this is a good idea when it's to touch base with your team members to identify what the current work process looks like and make sure that you're not introducing a project management tool that might inadvertently cause problems in the basically in the flow of work. Our best advice is to start small and then upgrade as needed. Again, don't get a whole bunch of stuff you don't need right now. Start with what you need today. And make sure that you involve key stakeholders in choosing your software. So again, depending on what kind of business you have and how many people are in it, this could include everything from, I'm like the president of your company. It could include maybe external collaborators like your accountant, or other people who provide services to your business and who are very closely linked to your business. Chat with them and kind of see, what tools and what processes would help them work better with you. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit more about software implementation. Once you've chosen a tool that's going to be a good fit, how do you actually roll it out in a way that people will use it? This tends to be probably one of the heavier lifts when introducing any kind of new software, simply that resistance to change. If you're familiar with the diffusion of innovation concept, it's kind of like a bell curve. And it indicates that there are some people who are early adopters who will always want to try all the new things and they're really excited. And on the other end of that bell curve, you have people who are who won't change until there's really not much of a choice and they know it's going to be a good fit. And that's totally fine. We all fall on that different part of that scale at different points in our lives. But a good software implementation will make sure that you're addressing all people along that scale and pulling them along and, basically encouraging them to adopt a change. It's not only going to be good for you, but will also be good for them and their productivity. So the most important thing is to make sure that you yourself learn the platform before you roll it out to your team. Now, fortunately, there are lots of tools and resources you can use to do this. Most software developers will include a pretty robust knowledge base or training course on how to use their project or how to use their product. And this is especially true for a lot of web-based tools. Look for, for example, Fill in the Blank Academy, like ClickUp Academy or Trello Academy. Those are usually signs that they have some sort of customer-facing training to help you adopt and learn the tool better. Another great source is YouTube. YouTube is a great source for any kind of software training. Just make sure that you are testing the reliability of a particular provider just by following along with the video as they're showing you how to do a process, just to make sure that they understand what they're doing and that you can follow along with it easily. The next thing to do is, of course, train your employees and your contractors and anybody else who's going to be using the software with you. Make sure that you offer them plenty of training support. This can include things like short tutorial videos, links to the software provider's training academy. This can include job aids or just short reference materials that they can use as they're doing a process so that they don't have to memorize everything up front. They have a quick guide to go and find how to do that process. Also make sure that those tools, any kind of training that you have, is available in one central location that's easy to access. You also want to provide documentation about how you and your company specifically uses this, how you and your company uses this particular project management tool. And this is different from the documentation provided by the software provider. That's showing how to use the tool in general. But with your business, you're going to be using the tool for specific things. You're going to have specific ways that you do different processes. And if you're working with team members or external collaborators, you want to make sure that you clearly document that. And same thing like with training, make sure that that documentation is in an easy place where everybody can access. For example, like an instance could be like OneNote. You can have all of your processes in one specific OneNote notebook for your company. If you use ClickUp, I know that they have docs, basically documents embedded into the tool, and you can put docs into, right into, say like a project, or you can, create like a separate project just for your specific, company workflows. But just make sure that any documentation you have on your processes are in a place that's easy to find. And finally, make sure that you're communicating the benefits of the project management software to your team. It's easy when you're doing any kind of change management to focus on what's hard, what's new, what you have to learn differently. But make sure that you also communicate how this tool is going to help them do their jobs better. That's one of the biggest things you can do with any kind of change management to make that lift a little easier. Okay. So I know that we've covered a lot of ground today. As always, thank you for sticking with us. And we're happy to answer any questions. We also have a short kind of basic comparison of some some of the most popular web-based tools. If that would be helpful, we can walk through that as well, just to give you an idea of what those look like. Okay, so Margaret says, yes, please. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll go into the comparison of these tools. So we have this broken down by the 4 big ones, ClickUp, Asana, Trello, and Monday.com. And again, these are just 4 of the more common ones. There are a lot of them out there. So again, make sure that you're doing your own research. Feel free to poke around and see what else is out there. But these comparisons should give you an idea of kind of what to look for and how to compare these. So we'll start with ClickUp. This is the one that we currently use. ClickUp, some of their features include custom views. You can create lists, boards, timelines, calendars, Gantt charts, tables, all different kinds of views you can have in there, which is nice to have all those options for how you want to view your work. Like I mentioned, they have docs. So you can actually, basically attach a doc to a task. You can link it to a task. You can put it into what are called spaces, which are kind of like big folders for organizing projects. And then each project under that would fall into what they call like a list, I believe. But, going back to the docs, you can definitely put docs in those different categories. So it's easy to find resources for a project at any time. Of course, they'll let you, map dependencies. They also have built-in forms. So, and these can be for internal or external facing. One way I've seen this used a lot is small agencies will use a ClickUp form to have people apply for an open position. To say tell us about yourself, attach your cover letter, attach your resume. And it's pretty easy to use, but it's also pretty effective. So some of the integrations that ClickUp allows include Google Drive, Slack, and GitHub. Their pricing, they have a free plan, which offers up to 100 megabytes of storage and unlimited users, tasks, and spaces. Paid plans start at $5 per user per month. Okay, and Margaret says, so to clarify, ClickUp integrates with Google Calendar also. I believe so. Is that right, Dan?
I'm not sure whether they connect directly to Calendar. It is possible. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they do. But this would be more along the lines of the Google Drive, keeping track of your files and attachments and stuff.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and just to clarify on that, like I've used in the past where you can basically attach a Google Doc, a Google form, anything in Google Drive directly to a task. But it's but as far as calendar, I'm sorry, we don't know that off the top of our head, but we can look that up. The next one is Asana. This one is also a pretty big competitor right now. Some of their features include custom views, again, lists, boards, timelines, and calendar. They allow you to set different roles, priorities, and dependencies. Some of their integrations include Dropbox, Gmail, Salesforce, and Jira. So if you're, doing more of a product side and you are tracking things in Salesforce, Asana might be a good choice for you. They also have a free plan for up to 15 users with very basic features. And then after that, paid plans start at $10.99 per user per month. Okay, I see Walt dropped in a link to ClickUp integrations. Thank you, Walt. Appreciate that. Okay. And on their page, it does say that they do allow syncing between Google Calendar and ClickUp. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Walt. Okay. All right. So the next two that we'll look at and compare are Trello and Monday.com. Trello is a Kanban board with drag and drop functionality. So you can move a task from, tasks are basically called cards and they look like just like little index cards. And you can drag and drop them from one column to the other. And you can assign whatever type of title you want to columns. You can call it to do, done, in progress, or you can organize it another way as well. They have what are called power-ups, which are kind of plugins that add more functionality to your project management tool. And these include, having a calendar, having voting on different cards. You can ask a question and get people's responses. Power-ups also include automation and reporting as well. This integrates with quite a few tools, including Slack, Jira, Miro, and Google Drive. If you're not familiar, Miro is one of the newer whiteboard / collaborative tools out there. In terms of their costs, they have a free plan for up to 10 boards, and then paid plans after that start at $5 per user per month. Keep in mind that some power-ups do cost extra. And then finally, Monday.com. This is one that I have never used personally, but I know that other people who I work with and collaborate with have used as well, and they have good things to say about it. They as well have custom views, lists, boards, timelines, calendars, and others. And they also offer dashboards, as does ClickUp as well. They also have automations and docs. They integrate with Slack, Dropbox, and Microsoft Teams, which is nice. We have tried the integration with ClickUp and Teams. Not the best, but I think it kind of depends on how you're using it. It wasn't a good fit for our needs, but if you are heavy into Microsoft Teams, you might want to look at Monday.com. Their cost, they have a free plan for up to 2 users with basic features. And then after that, paid plans start at $8 per user per month. So are there any questions on any of the tools that we've covered so far? Again, we haven't tried all of these, but whatever we can't answer, we can try to look up for you quickly.
Thank you for that information, Bridget. So if you were to condense into bullet points the top things that someone should be looking for in project management software, what would you say those are?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, definitely task management with the ability to assign dependencies. I would say definitely having multiple ways of viewing your work. So that way you can filter, filter and sort. That's a big feature as well. Especially if you're running multiple projects. And I think depending on what kind of team you have, having, having communication in their chat as well is really helpful.
I'd like to add a really big one that we had as one of our major deciding factors when we first started looking at ClickUp and a number of other things is that the ability to zoom in and zoom out. I don't remember exactly how we stated it when we were making our plan for finding a good project management solution, but basically we wanted to be able to see what's happening for all customers on all projects in one view. And then we just wanted to zoom in and do our exact detail work that we're going to do for the day. and not have to make a bunch of reports and sort of like sort everything out or organize everything. We just wanted to be able to like see either everything or only one thing, and have it always be completely in sync with what we're working on. So it was huge to be able to see that we actually were able to do that with ClickUp, and I thought that added a lot to our productivity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in ClickUp, I think that's called the everything view. And yeah, that was definitely one of the things that we were really interested in. I mean, simply because we have multiple projects going at any time, whether it's internally or for clients. So being able to see, like, you know, for instance, look into the future and to say, hey, you know, I'm supposing that a client wanted to work with us. We wanted to be able to look in the future and see how busy we were a month, 2 months, 6 months down the road, and then be able to, like, you know, decide if we had the bandwidth to commit to that project, which was really big for us.
Perfect. And do you think that there are some of these that are better for larger teams and others that are better for smaller teams?
Yeah, definitely. I would say Trello would be really good for smaller teams. That's what we started on. It's pretty easy to use, not a whole lot of bells and whistles, which, I mean, if you're new to project management tools, that's actually a good thing because you're not going to get overwhelmed by all the things you can do. It's really easy to move stuff around. It gives you that nice view of, like, you know, what needs to get done in different buckets. But as we expanded and as we started to get more projects, I think, I think ClickUp was probably a better solution for us, just because we were having multiple projects and we wanted to be able to track those and see exactly where we were at any given time. I've heard Monday.com being used a lot with larger teams, so I think that's a good one as well. I can't really speak for Asana, to be honest. I haven't tried it myself, but I've also seen teams of all different sizes using that one.
And one last question. How easy is it to switch from one software to another software if you decide that you need to upgrade or change?
Yeah, that's a good question. Before I answer that, Dan's kind of like our internal kind of specialist on this stuff. I wanted to give him a chance to respond to that first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading Kyra's question. So could you repeat the vocal question?
Sure. So if you decide to change from one software to another software, you know, your needs change, or you decide that that one isn't working very well for you, how easy is it to upload all of your information, or are you starting from scratch?
It kind of depends on where from and where to, I'd say. Even in desktop plans like Microsoft Project, for example, it used to be incredibly difficult to export your project information, or to try to get other project information into Microsoft Project. But over the past several years, they've been concentrating on doing a lot of import and export, so that you can pretty much pass things back and forth, and even keep separate project management systems live at any given time for different, teams who are working on different styles of work. And but then in other cases, you'll end up having things where it's just now a plugin, especially like with some of these different web-based services that you have. A lot of times some of these project management services will actually work back and forth with each other. And we've come across a couple of situations where we were just needing to use a plugin to send information to a completely different system. So I guess it just depends on the luck of the draw and what time of day it is, and what your target source and target systems are going to be. So sorry about the ambiguity there.
No, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Thank you for that, Dan. Yeah. I was just jumping onto Kira's question. Is there a particular question, or is there a particular program that works best for creative work, such as video project management? Personally, I think Trello might be a good solution for that, simply because it's a little bit more flexible, not as linear. You can kind of organize things however you like. And then she asked, can Trello link to external sources for live updates? For example, linking to Google Sheets or Google Forms. I'm pretty sure it'll do that. It might need an external power up, or excuse me, like an internal power up, but I'm pretty sure we'll do that as well.
There's evidently this, and I keep seeing it mentioned in different places, but the Zapier components, and they generally make a whole bunch of different components for linking all of this stuff together. And I saw them mentioned just now for connecting your Trello to Google Sheets in 2 minutes. So that probably gives you at least some hope that you could get most of what you needed integrated, even if it was through a Zapier component.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. And I was just looking up Trello's homepage. They have, and I'll share this link here. But it looks like they do have an integration directly with Google. And it looks like they're, basically built as power-ups. So you basically add that power-up to your Trello, but allow you to do that. Okay, any other questions or thoughts? Okay, Margaret said you didn't list Basecamp in your top list. Any reason? Frankly, I've never used it myself. It's not to say that it's not good. It's something I just have very little experience in. I'm not sure if Daniel, if you can add anything to that.
No, I'm sorry, I haven't used it either.
I have used Basecamp, not as an expert, but I can tell you my experience with it has been with some of the other softwares I've used. I didn't find it as user-friendly, but that's just my personal experience. So take that as you will. Perfect. Well, I would like to thank Bridget and Daniel once again for joining us. You guys are always great and give us such valuable information. And I'd like to thank everyone else for taking time out of your day to join us. I would like to mention that we do have another upcoming webinar on Friday, April 21st, 11 o'clock. And it is creating a strong brand identity and implementing your brand strategy. So if marketing is one of those things that is causing you some trouble, be sure to join us then. We have a lot of events coming up in April, May, and June. So check out our events calendar. I threw in the chat there. As usual, again, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Bridget and Daniel, and we hope to see you all next time. We do have a brief survey if you don't mind taking it. I think 4 or 5 questions. It always helps us to provide content that's useful to everyone. So please take that as well. Otherwise, we will see you all next time and have a wonderful Thursday.